Hello and welcome to DY's First Impressions and banner review for Anniversary Flash 2025. Hope you guys are all having a great roulette period. So, this banner here brings us one new grand character in Basara who was announced at the anniversary stream, and also we have Wind Summer Chicken and also Earth Summer Luo. So, lots of things to cover, so let's get right into it. Let's start off today with Basara's grand weapon. So, Basara comes with Canifortis. I don't know how to say this, but it comes with a light katana that is pretty much Light's version of Yule's grand weapon, but this time it is the normal attack or extremity focused one. So, most notably, it gives these particular skills here, and these two are different, whereas this one is the exact same. So, a couple things have been figured out since Yule's weapon release, so I'll talk about those right now as well. But basically, to begin with this mod here, this ignore a big percentage of the foe's defense does stack with regular debuffs, and the way you can sort of view this mod is to consider it a unique attack mod, just to not get into the nitty-gritty, but essentially because of the way the damage formula works. By ignoring a bit of the foe's defense, it is effectively very similar, or the same, I forget exactly, but it's pretty much the same thing as having a unique attack modifier. So it is a very good mod. Now, obviously this mod is only boosted by Zeus in this case, but I think these two skills sort of make it so that you might actually be able to use this particular weapon in Magna. I have seen some tests, and it is against the training dummy, against something with high defense. You might need more raw, or maybe the grids aren't figured out yet. Who knows? We'll have to see. But in Magna, I do think we will be able to still take use of these two mods, which are not boosted in any shape or form. So, this particular mod gives 50,000 supplemental damage to your normal attacks for light. This does stack with Harmonia. It's a different frame entirely. So, assuming you have two Harmonias in your grid, and then you add this, one of this, then it'll be 150k supplemental on normal attacks. So, something to consider, that you can stack two of these weapon copies up to a max of 100,000 supplemental on this. And this particular mod here is very reminiscent of the extremity key for the Dark Opus weapons. It is lower stats overall, but it's important to note that this particular skill still takes effect even if you don't have 280%, unlike the extremity key, but it just gives it to you at a lower value. In most cases, you will need sort of two of these to cap out the important stats from this particular weapon, like what this weapon provides. But at the moment with Zeus, it's, from what I know, very hard to include two of these into your grid unless you are using a Golden Fist of Order grid, which is the light illustrious fist. So basically what this all comes down to is that getting one of this weapon is really important if you're trying to optimize your light damage, and getting the second one at the moment seems a little bit more niche as far as I know. So for Guild War purposes, unless you want to absolutely cover your entire, like all the options available, probably one is fine for now if you want to be an optimized light player essentially. Either way, very strong weapon, and currently I think maybe one of the stronger grand weapons ever to exist. So something to consider there. All right, let's move on to the character this time. So Basara, in a nutshell, is a selfish attacker who provides some team utility in his dispel, but he needs a unique stack to really get his damage going. So let's break down his kit a little bit. So the thing I really want to talk about is this Watchdog's Flame, this particular thing here. And basically, he has a couple ways to get this particular stack. One is through this first skill, which gives him 3. And then this skill here, which restores the stacks to 3 at the end of the turn for 5 turns. These stacks are used by his first passive here, which is consume 1 Watchdog's Flame upon normal attacks to amplify his normal attack damage. It gives him Echo, and also this is where his Dispel comes from. So this is, you can sort of consider it similar to Grand Zeta, where she consumes her charge bar to give herself a bunch of buffs on her normal attacks. Now, unfortunately, compared to her, it's not really fair because Zeta's in fire and Basara's in light, so, but it does provide ultimately less. And the thing is, Zeta's thing is much more readily available because it's 40% charge bar, whereas Basara needs these stacks. And the stacks are consumed upon normal attacks, which means that if you have double strike, then he'll consume 2. Or in this case, if you click this skill, which gives him a self-tag team effect when you have his skill 3 up, it will also consume 1 there as well. So it has a much lower uptime. And at the moment, I don't think the benefits justify the fact that this effect won't be up all the time. So that's something to consider. He does, however, come with guaranteed triple attacks, which is always nice. He's immune to debuffs, which is sort of very comfy. Depending on the raid, this will be very nice to meaningless. But yeah, ultimately depends on what the boss does. And then he also has a way to gain his charge bar, which is every 3 attacks, he will gain 30% charge bar. Now, his Ogi here gives himself 50% echo, so a big Ogi echo there, but obviously it comes with the caveat that you need to Ogi on a normal attack character, and it also does unworldly light damage. So overall, Basara is not a bad character at all, but you can definitely see where some of the shortcomings are in his kit. Now, I've not seen Basara too much in practice, but I do see him being useful in certain shorter, sort of like more quicker full autos in Guild War, maybe in the lower difficulties. I'm not sure if he'll see use in the high difficulties just because I'm not sure if he provides enough. Maybe the Dispel might be enough to carry it, and I might be severely underestimating how often Watch Dogs Flame will be up. But at least in full auto, I still think he'll be a really solid auto-attacking unit there. Unfortunately, I don't see Basara much elsewhere. I don't think he has any HL usage. These debuffs tend to miss in HL. The Dispel I don't think is good enough for that. And for Burst, I think the fact that he needs to click this skill essentially to get Watch Dogs Flame sort of cements that. Like he's a character that needs to click a button, but I don't think the button at this point is worth it. But either way, this buff is still very strong depending on what the boss does. It gives him double strike among other things. Yeah, I think as a full auto unit, he will be very, very, very solid. Let's move on. Next character, we have Chicken. So, Wind Chicken is a normal attack support character for Wind. She provides this unique sort of buff, which provides a bunch of multi-attack echo, and also this weird effect, which is that every 17 attacks you dispel. Very weird. And if they already have the buff, which lasts for 5 turns, if you click this again, then they get Assassin 1 time. It's a 50% Assassin mod, which is relatively low, to be honest. Her second skill is a nuke that will auto nuke whenever the ally with Plumage, which is the first skill's buff, whenever that ally attacks, she will auto nuke, which is sort of nice. That's part of this passive right here. And then her third skill is a pretty good buff. Strength is always a good buff. Veil is nice utility, and the Amp is also nice, but this only goes to allies with Plumage here. And that sort of covers her kit. There is also this, which is the fact that when a Wind ally comes from the backline, they will automatically get Plumage. Now, do keep in mind that this particular passive works exactly the same as Evoker's. So a swap effect won't work. So for example, Catherine Wind will not work, which sort of sucks, unfortunately. But Death, Streaking, like those effects, when someone naturally dies, those will work. So my thoughts on Chicken as a Windbane is that she doesn't really have a place in any of Wind's Burst lineup teams at the moment. She looks like a Burst support character. All of her things sort of say Burst, but what she provides really doesn't seem like enough. And the other thing is that to get her effects, you sort of have to jump through a lot of hoops to get them, it feels. It's hard to, and the other thing is this effect, since it goes to the Wind ally in the next position, It's basically impossible to give this to MC unless you're doing some really, really annoying jank swapping nonsense, which in a burst team, you don't want to click that many buttons for that anyways. So it's like, it's really hard to justify clicking this when you can just click Summer Galleon's S1. Or you can click Corva onto Naru, right? This character at the moment to me feels like a future potential character. And I think it really requires like maybe 1 or 2 characters to get her going. Like in the future, let's pretend like, for example, in Fire, there's Ragazor. Ragazor is a character that does a huge amount of damage for 2 turns and then he dies. If a character like that in Wind exists, then this is really easy to activate. They just come in and then suddenly Chicken can buff them up. And then maybe the character coming in, I think if they have a way to just do a lot of multi-strikes, like right now we have Noir, and I think people will think, hey, giving normal attack buffs to Naru is good, but like Naru doesn't really need Assassin as well, so there's some weird things going on. Now, I might be underestimating this nuke. From what I've seen, this doesn't do significant damage. It's okay damage. I think I've seen like around 3 mil, somewhere hovering around there. So yeah. Either way, I think if you are a really dedicated Windbane, picking this up for future potential is something you can consider, but I'm pretty confident in saying as of right now, there's no real viable use for this character in the game, other than, you know, just meme full autos. So yeah, no HL, meme full autos, and definitely not burst at the moment. So in the future, maybe, if she gets a little bit more support, but yeah, it's a future potential character at best. All right, let's move on to Luo. So Luo comes in as a HL Ogi support for Earth, and he is looking to be a really, really solid Ogi character for solos in particular. Basically, he has this effect here, Uplift and Refresh, and 30% boost of Faded Chain Bar. Effects like this are very useful in, for example, Hexa solos, where you need Faded Chain constantly for the Galleon Wamdas phase. His third skill is a full heal and remove all debuffs, which is extremely powerful, obviously. And by the way, it clears the debuffs before you full heal. So if you have Zombie, you can't kill yourself with this, which is super nice. And once he has stacks at level 10, it also gives 100% charge bar to everybody. This, how you get the stacks here is by doing a full chain or by activating Faded Chain. So in V2, you'll be able to get this much quicker than V1. And then based on the stack level, it gives everybody attack, defense, and multi-attack. And these numbers are pretty decent as well, as far as I know. It is at level 10, 30% perpetuity, 50% defense, 100% double attack, and 30% triple attack. So it's pretty good numbers there. And then this particular effect here, which is that allies who are low HP just gets armor, so it's more defense for them. And if there's an Omen active, for some reason, if you have to tank it, I guess, then you have armor. So it's extremely nice. And this is 20% armor. Sometimes there are also Omens that you have to tank, that you can't cancel, so you just take less damage. What's not to like about that? Now, on his Ogi, he will Dispel, nice utility, and then it ends cooldown for his first skill. The first skill is a 5-hit nuke that increases a number based on his White Deliverance stack, which is this one over here that we talked about, up to a maximum of 10 hits. And when you have... if you have more than 40% HP, you can click this twice. So it's a big nuke that you can click up to twice each turn, and this does 2 debuffs. And debuffs in HL solos is very nice. Like if we're nitpicking, it would have been much better, obviously, if the Ogi auto-cast this skill, but, you know, the Ogi ends cooldown for this, which is already very good. So yeah, for HL solos, this character's looking really good. Outside of that, I think the problem is that he looks a little bit maybe too slow for V1 content in particular, because you need a long time to build up. This basically means you need 10 turns of full chains. The full chain part isn't that big of a deal, but the 10 turn part is. Even NM250 Ogis were, like, for wins was hitting like 10-ish turns. So yeah, by the time you get full stacks, the raid's already done. And for Earth, there might be better supports for things like that. And also he is a little bit clicky outside solos, just because you wanna click these for damage, right? but the Dispel might be still very nice. And then, yeah, and if you're doing groups for HLs, it might be a little bit too slow compared to other viable setups, but Ogi setups are traditionally have a much lower barrier of entry. So Lubo might enable something like that. Either way, I think he is a pretty good character for HL if you are in particular looking to do certain solo setups. So all in all, should you spark this banner? I personally think it depends on what you're going for here. If you are planning to spark Mahira or Lubo, this is the only chance to do them. You sort of have to do it here. They won't be sparkable anywhere else on 6% again. If you're sparking for Basara, however, you have to basically ask yourself how many copies of the weapon you're going for. Like I mentioned earlier, 1 copy is looking to be very good, 2 is looking to be extremely niche, and mostly only if you have order. If you're going for 2, this banner is better, obviously, because it has a bigger radar. But if you're only going for 1, the next Flash banner that happens directly after this one on March 20th, you will most likely have a bigger discount on the next Flash Gala because there is the guaranteed 100 pulls coming there. So if you are only going for 1 copy of Basara, it's better to spark there unless you get a massive roulette discount on this banner, in which case I guess you just pull this banner. But that's probably not the case for most people. So if you're going for Basara, 1 copy, do it the next banner. If you're going for multiple copies, do it this banner, basically. And then, yeah, these 2, if you're sparking for these 2, do this banner as well. Either way, hopefully that helps in making your decisions. As a reminder, there is also Legend Gala at the end of the month. There's 2 of them. There's another 100 discount banner. And after that, there is a Legend Part 2 with new summers with no roulette. So do keep that in mind if you are sparking here as well. So keep your funds in mind, I guess. Anyways, I think that will do me for this video. I think I covered everything I wanted. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I put out my anti-ticket video a couple of days ago. It's a long one, I know, but hopefully I covered all the information you want in there, so check it out if you haven't. And also in the description below, I will leave a tweet that I put out just listing out the important dates for roulette to remember. So anyways, best of luck on your roulette, and I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye. Bye-bye.